special video for you. As some of you know, my dear husband of 45 years passed away on Mother's Day. And before that, he had recorded a video for us on how he made the framed pegboards that I have in my sewing room. So I have that treat for you today. When we get to the end, you will see that there is not the instructions of how to hang them, which were also a very special way to do that. Unfortunately, we didn't get to that before he passed away, so I am, as you know, moving. So when we hang them in my house, we will show you, I'll do a little short video to show that. So if you're not a subscriber of the channel, go ahead and click that subscribe button and you'll get notified whenever I have new content. And new content is on the way. I've had a little bit of a downtime, but I promise you there's a lot of things I want to get up on the channel soon. So with that, here is the pegboard demonstration.
Okay, so today what we're going to be showing you is how to build a pegboard, a framed pegboard that one can hang up on your sewing room or craft room wall with hooks and that. You can hang all your accessories and things like that onto it. I built one of these a couple of years ago for Kim. It was a 4-foot by 8-foot pegboard, so a pretty good sized one. And she chose also a certain type of trim that we painted pink and attached that to the pegboard and hung the pegboard up in her craft room. And I believe that she has shown that pegboard on some of her videos. So obviously that pegboard filled up rather quickly, so now we need to make another one. We don't have the room. She doesn't have the room space, wall space I should say, to hang up another 4-foot by 8-foot. So we chose a smaller one this time, a 2-foot by 4-foot pegboard. And that's what I have laid out here on the table. We picked this up at, I believe it was a local Lowe's store. And fortunately I had a piece of trim left over from the first frame that I built, a pegboard that I built, so we were able to match that up really well and found identical trim to the first one. So the first step that we have to do is to cut the corners. We want to cut the 4 pieces for the 4 sides of the pegboard, and what we need to do though is to cut them at an angle, like this here, so that the 4 pieces will fit together nicely around the perimeter of the pegboard. Okay, so here's our 2 pieces of trim. Again, this was a 2-foot by 4-foot pegboard, and then the 2 pieces of trim I bought look like they're about 7 feet tall. I'm a little over 6 feet, so these are, I believe, 7-footers. And then all I'm going to do is for the first cut, I'm going to make my first cut right here at the end of the long piece, this long piece. And then once I have that, I can measure to cut the other miter, or the angled cut at the other corner. And then that'll leave me enough length then for the short side. And then just do the same process with the other piece of trim that we bought. Okay, so now we have the trim here. I've got my miter saw set up. And so I have the first piece of trim that I said I'm going to just cut the end off at the 45-degree angle for my mitered corner. And I've got a nice little laser line here that shows me where I'm actually going to be cutting. You see the little red line right here by my finger. So I'm just going to cut this little corner piece off first. Okay, the way I'm going to fit the trim up to the pegboard is there's a little raised edge right here along the trim. I'm going to have this edge of the pegboard fit right up against that. So actually I'm going to lose a little bit of my space on the pegboard, but not very much. So that's how that piece will fit on there. So then when I cut my next piece, the mitered corner angled corner will fit right up against this piece here. So it'll be a nice, smooth, corner then. Okay, now that we have all 4 sides of the frame cut, you can see here we cut with my miter saw, cut a corner, 45-degree angle on each of the 4 pieces. Don't do like what I did. My very last cut it the wrong way, so I had to go back to Home Depot, get another piece of wood. But anyhow, so we've got the four sides cut to length to fit around the pegboard. Now the next step is going to be to assemble the frame together as one unit. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to take the 4 pieces, the 4 frame pieces, and just flip them over like so. So now I've got the back side showing. And I'm probably going to use a little bit of construction adhesive like liquid nails or another product similar to that. Put a little bit of that at each corner, and then I'm going to fasten the corners together with these little corner brackets, straps, whatever you want to call them. Those will just go right here, and I'll screw the bracket right into the frame. Between that and the glue, then that will hold the frame together. Once the frame is all together, then it will be ready to be painted. Okay, we now have the frame fully assembled, and if you recall, the way that I did that was at each of the corners here where we had to cut the 45-degree miter with my saw, is I took and I applied a little bit of construction adhesive, something like, again, liquid nails is a very good product, or even Gorilla Glue would probably work very nicely. I applied that to the joint, to the face of the joint, and then put the pieces together. And then if you also recall, the other thing I did was I had these L-shaped straps that are available at any Lowe's or Home Depot or Menards, very inexpensive, and attach those at the corners, at each corner, and that just helps to hold the whole assembly together while the glue is drying. And then what you want to do is give yourself sufficient time for the glue to totally dry and set up. Once that is done, then you're ready to paint.
So just a little break here in the action to say how much I love my pegboards as they are hanging in my sewing room. Without them, I wouldn't be near as organized as I am. So with the addition of the frame, it just really sets off my room, and I think it would look good in your room too. So let's return to the instructions.
Okay, now that we're ready to paint, what I've done is I've just set up one of my tables here in the garage with some paper and drop cloths and that, so I don't mess up my table and get my wife mad at me. Then I've just laid down some wood just to elevate the frame off of the paper, and then we're ready to paint. Now, the paint that we're using is this Rust-Oleum Painter's Touch. It's a spray paint. You don't have to use spray paint if you want to. If you want to use a brushed-on paint, a wood paint, that's certainly acceptable. But Kim liked the color that she found in this spray paint, so this is what we're going with. This is what we used on her first frame in her sewing room. And then just follow directions. You want to shake it real well. The other thing, I have it here in my garage. I've got the overhead door open because of the fumes and all that. You don't want that to build up in the garage. And the other thing you probably want to do is wear a mask while you're painting. Otherwise, the next couple days you'll be tasting paint with your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So, and Lord knows we have enough masks around these days, right? So you just want to put the mask on, and then you're ready to begin your painting. Okay, now we have the frame has been completely painted. One thing, I don't think I mentioned this before, when you do paint it though, especially if you spray paint it, is once you've applied the first coat and let it dry, One thing you might want to do is just take the frame, take it outside into the daylight, you know, into good light, and just look it over real closely. Make sure that you've got everything evenly covered, that to your satisfaction. Sometimes you might miss a little spot, especially with spray painting, or maybe it's a little thin, something's bleeding through, like a knot or something. So just double check it, and if necessary, give it a second coat and let it dry. I gave this one a second coat just because. So now we're painted. The last step to putting the frame and pegboard together is to mount the pegboard onto the frame. So obviously we just turn it over to the back side. And what you might want to do, just kind of test fit it. Make sure everything fits properly. So you can see what I've done here. The way I fit this was the edge of the pegboard is going to go right along this line right here all the way around. So here's the line. Some of you might decide I don't want to lose that much of my pegboard. You might want to, you know, line it up like this. Then you'll need to cut your trim accordingly when you put that part together. But here I've chosen to line it up on that outside edge. So I see here everything fits well. It lays in there real nice. Nothing is popping up or anything. So I know that it's going to fit properly. So the way that I'll physically attach the pegboard to the frame is, again, I'm going to use a construction adhesive similar to what I used at each of the joints previously. And here I'm going to use liquid nails. And I'm going to take and run a line of the adhesive all the way around the perimeter of the frame. And once I've done that, then I'll take my pegboard, lay it down like I had it there just a minute ago, and it'll be sitting right into the adhesive. And then the last thing I'm going to do is take my heavy-duty stapler and go around the perimeter and just put in a few staples around the perimeter. Again, that just helps to hold everything together, and that also helps to press the pegboard, the edge of the pegboard, right down firmly against the trim, and that'll hold it, you know, into the glue, so everything will dry the way, you know, we want it to. Okay, so now we're ready to apply the adhesive. Okay, we've got our adhesive all around the perimeter of the frame, and so now it's time to lay the pegboard down onto the frame into the adhesive. And you see I've got the white side, which is the side we want to show. That'll go face down. Okay, so now the pegboard has been laid onto the frame into the adhesive, and the last step now is to get our heavy-duty stapler out and install staples around the perimeter. Now I measured the thickness of the pegboard. It's a little more than 1/8 of an inch, probably maybe closer to 3/16 of an inch. So I've put 3/8 inch staples into my staple gun. That way there, it gives me plenty of length to penetrate through the pegboard and into the far enough into the frame wood, but not so long that it's going to stick out the front side. We certainly don't want that. Okay, so now we're ready to staple, and it's just kind of random how many you put. What I'm going to do is I'm going to staple at the hole so that the staple actually goes through the hole, and I don't have to really penetrate the pegboard itself, because the pegboard is pretty hard and might just bend the staple. So you see I got a nice staple there. Okay, so now we have the staples all installed. We can flip it up, turn it over, see how it looks. Looks pretty good. Now what I'm going to do, I'm working out in my garage right now, and it's only about, I don't know, 20 degrees out. I'm going to take this inside now, put it in my basement, so that it's a warmer environment for the glue to dry properly. And then once the glue is dried, the final step is to simply mount it on the wall of the sewing room, and that'll be next.
Thank you so much for joining me today. As I said, this was a really special video today in honor of my dear husband. And what I would like to do is tell you to hug your family tight, because you never know what tomorrow will bring. And with that, I just say happy sewing.